deal with airplane peanuts.
On April 28th, 2018, Michelle Wolf went on stage in front of the nation and delivered the most controversial White House correspondence performance of all time.
What are the jokes from last night given by that former Daily Show writer? Well, they're not safe for family-friendly TV. You won't be seeing some of them here.
I mean, it was just repulsive.
And boy, was I glad my kids and I weren't watching.
It was horrible. It was just straight up horrible.
Let's put the vile comedic jokes aside.
We've heard liberals say there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women.
Those clips are a good reminder that the big crime for Michelle Wolf was really that she wasn't funny.
Why would President Trump ever go, I think he's right, I think this whole thing is dead?
I'm very happy I did it, don't get me wrong. And I stand by those jokes to this day.
They were great jokes.
Thanks.
You got the president to tweet at you.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
This 19-minute set from Michelle Wolf not only sparked days of continuous outrage from mainstream news anchors on both sides of the political fence, but these jokes also created such a large stir that Donald Trump himself even got involved on Twitter.
So-called comedian Michelle Wolf. By the way, that is like some of the best publicity you could ever get.
Yeah,
the president says this. Bombed so badly last year at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. First of all, not true. You can go listen to the recordings. People were laughing. Like, come on. This is so crazy that you say that. Bombed so badly. Play it back.
Yeah.
Huh, what's all that noise?
There was parts of it where people got kind of quiet, but I remember I was like, first of all, this is for the audience at home, but also I was like, it's one of those rooms where you're like, at best, it feels fine.
Right.
You know, like it's
Fine.
like a corporate gig
Yeah.
almost.
Exactly like a corporate gig. They will have an author instead of a comedian. What a great idea. Good first step and comeback of a dying evening in tradition. Maybe I will go.
Ever since the White House Correspondents' Dinner started in 1921, nobody has made even close to as much of a stink in the media or elicited such a massive response from journalists than Michelle Wolf. And recently, this exact performance was back in the news after the comedian just released a new 15-minute set looking back at the dinner while breaking down all of the aftermath and backlash she received on Punch Up Live. Well, Michelle Wolf, thank you so much for joining us today. We're starting off, you have a new project coming out on Punch Up that details the time that you did the White House Correspondents' Dinner back in 2018 and some of the outrage that caused. Let's start at the beginning. How does a comedian even get booked to do that gig?
You get a call from your agent, and presumably a bunch of other people already said no. And then you're the one person that's like, yeah, why not? I'm sure your agent's like, got him.
So do they like watch your material beforehand? Like, do they know who they're hiring? Like, it's just the outrage seems silly to hire someone to tell jokes and then get angry about it. So like, how do they come up with who's going to tell these jokes or who are we going to get mad at, I guess, kind of?
Yeah, I'm not sure they knew of my material, or at least thoroughly knew of my material beforehand. I do remember the day of the dinner, the woman who was in charge, we were doing a sound check and she was like, what does your gown look like? And I was like, oh, actually, I'm wearing a suit. And she was like, me too, I'm wearing pants. It's my little stick it to the man. And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea what I'm about to do. Like your version of like standing up to them was wearing pants. I was like,
It is funny because there was outrage from some people. Some people stood up for you and said, well, it's a comedian doing their job. Do you think that when it comes to doing like political comedy in that exact setting, do you think it's even possible to do a job where both people say that was funny, or is it just going to get taken personally depending joke by joke no matter what?
I think that it's possible to do a job where everyone thinks it's boring. But I think we're in such kind of like a polarized time that if you make fun of one side, even kind of little light jabs, they're going to be like, oh, can you believe that woke, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I want to make fun of all of you. You're
Right.
all bad.
Is that annoying or is that just part of the job?
I think it's part of the job at this point, and I'd much rather be loved and hated rather than to people just be like, yeah, she's okay.
Yeah, that's
so, you know.
Yeah. So hosting the White House Correspondents' Dinner almost feels like it'd be similar to hosting like a big award show where there's a lot of pressure on it. You're writing jokes about certain topics that are serious. How does this feel going into basically the ultimate corporate gig, but it's also going to be played on the news?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to make like a little bit of a stir, you know, like
Yeah, I think you did that.
Yeah, I think that was successful. You know, an award show is, the stakes aren't very high, right? Because like, I mean, I guess they're high career-wise because you're like in front of a bunch of like Hollywood people. But in terms of, you know, the actual content, it's like, oh no, was my joke about Leonardo DiCaprio too offensive, you
Right,
know, like
yeah. It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
will his young girlfriend understand it? And like when you're actually talking to these people who have like they can make fundamental differences in our lives, there is like there's a gravity to the jokes you're saying, to be like, I kind of went into it thinking like, what point do I want to make in front of them? Like, what do I want to say to these people? Because this is probably the only time I'm going to get a lot of these people in a room where I can speak to them directly. I can't imagine they'd have me back. But
were you thinking about the people in the room more than the people like at home? Because it's such a crazy experience, I would feel like, from a comedian point of view, because it's like, yeah, the people in the room have these important jobs and it's your one chance to talk to them, but also this is going to get played on the news networks. People in every different state are going to watch this and try to understand your point of view and stuff. Like, are you thinking about all of that at the same time, or what do you think stood out more to you when like preparing for this, like the people in the room versus the circus that will happen after?
I knew the room wasn't going to react well, because even if you're right, it's like a corporate gig, and like a corporate audience is always just like, at best you're like, I didn't die, right? I knew the audience wasn't ever going to react big, but I just wanted to make sure I had tried my jokes out a bunch in New York the month before. I wanted to make sure the jokes worked for the audience at home, but I wanted to make sure the message worked for both the people in the room and the audience at home. And what I really liked about it is that a lot of times you can tell political jokes or, any type of joke, to be able to make fun of people in front of their faces is very fun.
What did the room feel like after? Because like on like a real roast, it's kind of like mutual and everyone got to, share jabs, but this was like roasting them and then just, all right, good night, and leave. Like, what did it feel like once you were done? Do you watch anything else, or do you just leave, or like, what is that like?
So there was, I was sitting next to these two guys on the dais, and the one was this like British guy. I cannot remember who it was. He had like a very British reaction to it. He was like, oh, whoa, that was something. Then like there's another guy, like I also can't remember who he was, but he was American, and he was like, oh, it was a little bit vulgar. I was like, yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always getting called vulgar. It was a bit tense. It was also long. Like you only saw this one part on television, but there was a whole dinner and a scholarship recipient thing. They recognized a bunch of different people. Everyone had been drinking. It was just like, this was like hours. So I think at the end, not only were people like, I think everyone was like, we gotta go.
So would you say it was net fun looking back at the whole thing, just how it went in the room, how it went after? Would you be like, yeah, that was a good time? What are your thoughts 7 years later?
I had a great time, to be honest. I had a great time. I was really happy with how it went. I think it's aging particularly well. It was fun to do. I don't regret it at all. I'm happy to have done it. And to be honest, if they did ask me back, I would do it again, because I have more to say. If they thought that was mean, I was like pumping the brakes a little bit. So, and that's part of what I'm putting out on Punch Up, is like kind of even more honest version of what I did back at the dinner.
So is it looking back, you currently now, like looking at watching it back and then commenting on it? Or are you going back at like some of the jokes that you took out at the time, or like going over like how you were preparing for it then? Or is it more like a current state looking back, if that makes sense? I don't know if
I kind of I filmed this back in 2022, looking back at the dinner and like what I was like commenting on what I was criticized for, the state of the media itself, why I think they criticized me, and I don't actually think it was because of the Sarah makeup joke. And then at the end I do a bunch of new roast jokes.
Okay.
I mean, at this point they were written back in like 2022, so like they're a little bit, they're not new roast jokes now, but I kind of do a look back, an analysis of why, and then some fun little roast at the end.
There's no denying that the 2018 performance changed the way this dinner is booked forever, as ever since Michelle's appearance, there have only been 3 comedians to host the event, all who were relatively safe choices. In fact, this year's dinner won't feature any comedians at all. Why do you think that the White House Correspondents' Dinner is an important part of our society in the first place?
I think it's important to, just as like the Correspondents Association says that they think it's important to hold the president and these politicians accountable, I think it's important for us to hold the Press Association accountable. Even just having a comedian there who can speak honestly, but hopefully also with punchlines. That's a thing that should be happening, like the press is just as susceptible as a lot of these politicians are to, the money and fame and glory, and they're supposed to be doing a service for us, and they're missing out on, they're just ignoring it.
Do you think that it makes it like it sounds like very like self whatever grandiose, like them talking about like the importance of comedy? Some people can roll their eyes. Like your jokes have so much truth in them, but they're presented in a way that make people actually listen. So do you think comedy is a good tool to make people pay attention?
I think it is. I mean, like I know growing up that like a lot of people I went to like high school with, and sorry to age Jon Stewart so much here, but we didn't watch the news. We watched The Daily Show. But The Daily Show is very factually accurate. And it got us interested in the news, and it got us interested in politics. So I think it's a good way in. I think comedy can be a good way in to what's happening in society and commenting about society. That being said, I don't think comedy is the 100% right vehicle for presenting news and information.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's a nice way to learn about stuff and to get into it. But I also think we need a news guy who's serious and can just say the facts and isn't trying to make analogies and, being like, it's like when your mom does,
Who are 3 comedians that you would think would be a great host of the White House Correspondents' Dinner?
Let's see. I think Bill Burr would be great.
Yeah.
Well, I think Michael Che, if he actually said what he wanted to say. I mean, obviously Dave Chappelle would be amazing.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Dave Chappelle would also be like a great press secretary, like he would be like
Yeah. That would be awesome.
The thing about Trump is that like he actually has really good comedic timing, and whether he's trying to or not, and sometimes I can't tell, he does say funny things, and they would be really funny if it wasn't like, oh, but that's like got like worldwide consequences.
Yeah.
Like no one pronounces China funnier than he does. And it's not a hard word, but I think the problem is, and I think this is the problem with a lot of kind of like egotistical men who are rich but didn't necessarily make their own money, is that they have really thin skin and they just can't take it. I mean, like, I'm sure you've been around a lot of comics who like, we jab each other all the time. You sit down at the comics table and like, you better buckle up because, like you gotta be able to throw stuff and you gotta be able to catch stuff. That's the fun of it, you know? I just think that making fun of him is just not something that he can deal with.
This could be maybe the best Correspondents' Dinner because you have someone that has comedic instinct and the comedians added in. It's like if he was able to really roll with it, these 4 or however many dinners could be some of the funniest ones. Because usually you probably just have some boring politician up, like, I don't know, some other old guy. Like
Biden's not going to give you a good, like, you know, like he's not going to hit it hard, like
exactly.
He's going to kind of give you a very mellow response. Obama had really good comedic timing as well, but that still was all like fun and games, like it would kind of be, I don't know, it'd be fun. It would be a bit fun to go head to head.
Yeah. Maybe if it got sold to Netflix, he'd be more interested if there was ratings and numbers.
If there was ratings and he got, I don't know.
It was the next Brady roast. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was an honor to talk to a legend like yourself. Do you have any more, anything else that you want the Joke World subscribers to know? Social medias or tours or anything coming out, or just... Everyone knows you already, but whatever you want to say. Last words.
Just look at my punch up. I'm putting out Dinner Time on the 24th, which is kind of my look back at the Correspondents' Dinner. I also have a podcast called Thought Box, which you can subscribe to on Punch Up, where I do essentially 40 new minutes of stand-up material every week, which is killing me to write, but we're getting there. Yeah, just get on Punch Up. watch Dinner Time, enjoy, leave nice or mean comments on my podcast, whatever you're in the mood for. I don't care.
Guest spots from last week. The Joe Rogan Experience sat down with Derek Poston, Tim Dillon, Jordan Peterson, and Joey Diaz. Gerbies was on Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. Two Bears, One Cave was Bert and Tom, Tom and Bert. Joe List and Tom Dustin stopped by We Might Be Drunk. Brad Williams came on Your Mom's House. Kill Tony was in Nashville with Kid Rock and Mark Normand. Story Wars was a battle between Tony Hinchcliffe, Kim Congdon, and Ari Maddie. Ted Danson did stuff with Howie Mandel. Charlie Day hit the links on No Bad Lies. Keegan Michael Key broke bread with Tom Papa. Pete Buttigieg was the guest on Flagrant. Chris Titus took a ride on the Harland Highway. Harland Williams stopped by Are You Garbage? And sat on the couch with Soder. The Solid Show had on Aaron Weber, and Kevin Hart visited Stavi's World.
On the couch, new father, Mark Normand in the building. How's it feel, bro?
It feels weird. He's not mine. It's Matt Rife's. He came out doing crowd work. He had a headset.
He came out with a Janet Jackson mic?
Yeah. He asked the nurse, how long you been together? What do you do for a living? No. It's going great. It's cute. It's gay. It's a little nugget. It's exciting. I'm on no sleep. I want to throw it out the window, but it's exciting.
Mike Rowe was on This Past Weekend with Theo Vaughn. Andy Richter stopped by The Wayback. The Blocks podcast featured Larry Wilmore. AJ Wilkerson stopped by Burtcast. Dad Meat had on Charles Bliznick. Chris Cappy stopped by Camp Gagnon. Mark Gagnon was on UB Trippin'. Drew Montana and Maddie Smith were on Zach Amico's Morning Zoo. Karen Fian stopped by Durag and the Deer Tag. Karen Fian and Drew Montana were also on You Know What Dude with Yamanika Saunders. Fiona Cawley went on First Date. Jeff Dye stopped by The Honeydew. Jessica Kierson was on Working It Out. Burbs Bros had on Ross Coulthart. Brooke Whelan made an appearance on Whiskey Ginger. And we interviewed Mark Normand right here on Joke World. As far as new stand-up comedy specials that are either out right now or coming out soon, it's been a slow week as far as quantity, but the quality is certainly there. Starting off with Tim Dillon, I'm Your Mother on Netflix, and Jessica Kierson, I'm the Man on Hulu, which for these two comedians are pretty funny names when read back to back. And of course, Michelle Wolf's 15-minute set about the White House Correspondents' Dinner titled Dinner Time is out right now on Punch Up completely for free. It's basically just like a set on YouTube, but the link to watch it will be in the description of this video. So if you enjoyed today's interview, definitely consider going over to Punch Up and watching that next. We also have a few specials in the works right now that will be coming out soon. Starting off on May 6th, David Spade, Dandelion premieres on Prime Video. May 20th, Sarah Silverman, Postmortem will be out on Netflix. And May 21st, Joe List's Small Ball will debut in theaters across the country, so be sure to go check and see if that's coming out in your area. And last but not least, on May 26th, Mike Birbiglia, The Good Life comes out on Netflix. But other than that, we have a few new best of compilations out right now on the main channel that could use some watching. But more importantly, there's gonna be a lot of new videos getting uploaded on this channel from interviews we did at Moontower Comedy Festival last week. So if you don't want to miss those, just press subscribe right now. Stop letting the YouTube algorithm show you what it wants you to see. Take control of your comedy news cycle like a man and press subscribe to the channels that you want to watch. You're still watching this one right now, so it can't be that bad. Okay, thank you for watching. Free stickers, link in bio.
At Joke World. That's it, at Joke World.
And the world is WRLD.
That's a great YouTube channel, Joke World. Check it out.